And welcome to another Mark Bishop show. You know, lawsuit abuse results is over $284 billion. That's excessive tort costs. Now, in other words, lawsuit abuse costs every American about $1,303 each year in a tort tax. Have you ever heard of that before? According to the American Tort Reform Foundation, judicial hellholes are places where lawsuits and abuse of the court system, they're regarded as the norm. While the surge in excessive and high-dollar nuclear verdicts results in higher costs on, well, for us, consumer goods, fewer jobs, all while American families are already feeling the pinch of inflation. This year in judicial hellholes, lawsuits were filed that ignore one of the most basic tenets of tort law, claiming an actual injury. Well, it's hard to believe, isn't it? Tiger Joyce is president of the American Tort Reform Foundation. What's going on, Tiger? Welcome.
Well, Mark, thank you. Thank you for having me on. I think you captured it very well, which is that the excesses and abuses of our civil justice system cost the average consumer over $1,300 a year, which I think is all the more compelling because of the overall inflation that we're facing as a country, historic inflation, the highest in decades. And I think you put your finger on it. There are a lot of different factors that go into the lawsuit abuse and the appearance of the jurisdiction in our judicial hellholes report. I think you highlighted one of them, the willingness of courts to allow cases to move forward when individuals have suffered no injury. I mean, that really is a foundational building block of a traditional tort case, a civil case, whether it's a contract matter or other matter, is injury demonstrated by the individual or entity that brings a case. But we're seeing other factors as well. The inability or the unwillingness of judges to police their docket. Oftentimes, this may sound very innocuous or unimportant, but when courts simply look to attract lawsuits into their jurisdiction, and we highlight this, for example, with the Court of Common Pleas in Philadelphia, it really skews the system, and Philadelphia has become, for that reason, a centerpiece for what we call mass tort lawsuits brought against major businesses. But other factors come into play. In recent years, we are seeing litigation finance companies, major financial institutions, and hedge funds that are in effect investing in the cost of litigation. They may help underwrite the cost of advertising that lawyers do or entities do to accumulate plaintiffs in these mass tort cases. We see the problems with certain jurisdictions with what we call junk science in the courtroom. So all of these, and that's I should come back to the junk science issue, because that's particularly important when you're dealing with complicated products. Could be maybe, for example, a pharmaceutical product. That you have complex scientific issues. We shouldn't be inviting novel scientific theories into the courtroom. It's up to judges to properly police that process to ensure that juries are given the appropriate guidance and information. So all of these issues combine, and just in some instances, just a willingness to expand liability for the purpose of just achieving a broader outcome. We think are all of these work together, unfortunately, to create the abuses of the system in particular in the hellhole jurisdiction.
Well, Tiger, let me ask you this. For the layman's point of view, a judicial hellhole, what is it exactly?
Well, we believe these are the jurisdictions where the worst abuses take place. We think that the potential for a defendant, which is usually a business, sometimes a small business, sometimes a larger business, believes that based on any number of factors that we highlight in the report that they simply can't get a fair shake. The Supreme Court has on the facade above the entrance says equal justice under law. That's what we should aspire to. We believe in the judicial hellhole jurisdiction that equal justice is not available to defendants.
So let me ask you this then. Why does it matter if my state or city makes the list?
Well, first off, the cost of lawsuit abuse in a jurisdiction, does impact everybody, whether it has to do with the cost of goods and services, the ability of a jurisdiction. We talk about the overall cost. It impacts the ability to create jobs. It also impacts, if you're a state or local government, the ability to generate tax revenue. So it directly impacts governments and businesses and consumers. So it is important. But ultimately, at a more basic level, it's important to keep in mind that the costs and these abuses aren't contained to the legal system. They ultimately are passed on. Just as businesses have to deal with other costs, these costs get passed on. You may not see it on the price tag of anything you purchase or in services that you may contract with, but they are there, and they are an important part of what drives the cost of what we consume and other services that we utilize.
Well, Tiger, in the limited time that we do have left, is there a chance you can share with us which jurisdictions made this year's list?
Sure. This year, for the first time, Georgia was at the top of the list, and they did so primarily because of a $1.75 billion award against Ford in a truck rollover case. Very tragic situation, but significant abuses in the system, including the fact that Georgia law did not allow the defendants to enter into evidence that the passengers were not wearing their seatbelts. Next is the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, along with the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas, sort of a together designation of two court systems in Pennsylvania. Number 3 is California. Number 4 is New York. Number 5 is Cook County, Illinois. Number 6 is South Carolina asbestos litigation. Number 7 is, and when I say that, it's specifically lawsuits over asbestos. Number 7 is Louisiana, and number 8 is St. Louis.
Now, those that you just mentioned, Tiger, can they also be found on the official website, the judicialhellholes.org?
Yes, the report is available online. It's got a lot of information in there. It's got specific information about each of the hellholes. It also talks about some of these other issues that I mentioned, litigation, third-party litigation finance. It also talks, for example, about the National Association of Attorneys General, because a major source of litigation against certain industries are cases that are being brought by states but are being driven by private lawyers on a contingency basis.
Right.
And the so-called NAG has over $250 million in assets that it uses as part of it to drive litigation.
Right. Well, of course, the contingency, we're talking, 30-odd% or more of the total catch. So it's of their interest, except that we suffer. Nuclear verdicts, obliterate state economies, as you do say, in these judicial hellholes. And, some pay a tort tax of more than $1,900 each year. So, folks, this concerns you. Look, go to the site, www.judicialhellholes.org. Have a good read. Have a look at the 8 that Tiger mentioned, the 8 worst judicial hellholes. But you often wonder where you're, because this goes all over the place, my show, so you wonder what state where you might rank, you know what I mean? So I'd have a look if I were you, because it's affecting us one way or another. This is, it's an interesting story. Nobody thinks about this, I don't think, Tiger, in closing.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think one of the biggest challenges is that most people think of the the legal system as just somehow separate from their lives, their everyday, and doesn't impact them. That it only is a concern to lawyers and judges and maybe law professors. But the reality is that lawsuit abuse, as you I think very correctly stated, Mark, is significantly impacts every man, woman, and child in this country as consumers, as potential businesses, and even as I said, in terms of the generating tax revenue for state and local governments.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Tiger. Appreciate your time. Tiger Joyce, ladies and gentlemen. He's president of the American Tort Reform Foundation. And please go to that site. Check it out. It concerns all of us. www.judicialhellholes.org. Thank you, Tiger. Nice speaking with you.
Mark, thank you so much.